Welcome back to Rating the List, where we review, discuss, and reimagine popular movie lists objectively. We're your hosts. I'm Jerry.
And I'm Brad. And on this episode, we'll be exploring number 2 from AFI's 100 Years, 100 Passions, the 100 Greatest Love Stories of All Time.
Our number 2 is Gone with the Wind, released in 1939, directed by Victor Fleming, starring Clark Gable and Vivien Leigh.
The synopsis for this historical romance is as follows. Vacant and spoiled Southern belle Scarlett O'Hara, played by Vivien Leigh, lives on the family cotton plantation on the eve of the Civil War in Georgia. She is deeply attracted to Ashley Wilkes, but he is to be married to his cousin Melanie Hamilton. Scarlett is rebuffed by Ashley at his engagement party, but does catch the attention of Rhett Butler, played by Clark Gable. The party is disrupted by news of President Lincoln's call for volunteers to fight the South's efforts to secede from the Union. Many Southern men respond by joining the Confederate Army. In an attempt to make Ashley jealous, Scarlett marries Melanie's younger brother Charles before they leave for war. After Charles's death, Scarlett's mother sends her to the Hamilton home in Atlanta. She creates a scene by attending a charity bazaar while mourning and dances with Rhett, who is now a blockade runner for the Confederacy. As the tide of the war turns against the South and the fighting reaches Atlanta, Melanie gives birth with Scarlett's aid. Rhett helps them flee the city and sets them off towards the O'Hara plantation, Tara, before choosing to join the fight. The women arrive at Tara to learn Scarlett's mother has just died of typhoid fever and her father has lost his mind. The plantation has been pillaged by Union troops, but Scarlett takes over and vows to ensure the family's survival. The Confederacy is defeated and the O'Haras toil in the fields. Ashley returns to Tara. Scarlett begs him to run off with her, and while he confesses his feelings and kisses her, he tells her he can't leave Melanie. Scarlett's father is killed chasing a carpetbagger from Tara. Unable to pay their Reconstructionist taxes, Scarlett dupes her younger sister's wealthy middle-aged fiancé, Frank Kennedy, into marrying her instead. Scarlett finds an opportunity in the lumber business and convinces Ashley to be her business partner. After she is attacked traveling through a shanty town, the men stage a night raid, which results in Frank's death. Shortly after the funeral, Rhett proposes and Scarlett accepts. They have a daughter named Bonnie Blue. Still pining for Ashley and dismayed at the perceived ruin of her body, Scarlett refuses to have more children or to share a bed with Rhett. Scarlett and Ashley are seen embracing and rumors spread. Melanie stands by her friend, but Rhett grows sullen. After a drunken fight, he carries Scarlett off to the bedroom. The next day, he apologizes and offers her a divorce, which she rejects because it would be a disgrace. She informs him she is pregnant when he returns from an extended business trip. She falls down the stairs during an argument and miscarries. While recovering from the fall, Bonnie has a riding accident and dies. Scarlett and Rhett visit Melanie, who has experienced complications from childbirth and dies. While Scarlett consoles Ashley, Rhett prepares to leave Atlanta. Realizing it's Rhett, not Ashley, who she truly loves, Scarlett rushes home and pleads for him to stay. He rebuffs her and leaves. A distraught Scarlett resolves to return home to Tara and vows to one day win Rhett back.
So,
This is a movie.
So what I'd really like to do is, can you talk a little bit about the intro to this movie that we saw?
Sure. So, this movie is currently on HBO Max. It has been for a while. And there is an intro from, I did not catch the lady's name. She's an African-American woman. But she discusses the kind of, let's call it the romanticizing of the South. That's the nicest way you can put it. That occurs in this movie. So this movie essentially glorifies the position of the South in the Civil War. For those who don't know, or maybe you might not be an American. I don't think we have any international viewers as far as I know
of, but there could be.
But the American Civil War, basically in its simplest form, boils down to the states of the South. Their economy was almost entirely based on an agrarian economy that was, built on the backs of African slaves. And the country was trying to ban slavery, because slavery is bad,
Because it's kind of wrong.
kind of bad.
Yeah.
So the southern states then put together Articles of Confederation to secede from the Union so that they could continue to have their slave economy, essentially. And the two sides fought. The Civil War lasted for 5 years. And at the end of it, the South lost, and slavery was eliminated from the country officially. You could argue that it still exists in some fashion, in some ways, in this country. But this movie kind of, it kind of positions that, the Union is bad, and this
Those
idyllic
Yankees, those dirty Yankees.
that there was this idyllic life in the South on these plantations, and it completely whitewashes over the fact that all these people had slaves, and they don't, like, they make it seem like the slaves like to
be a slave.
The life that they're in. It's absolutely ridiculous.
And though it was hard to rate this movie on representation, because there were a lot of African American actors in this movie. The woman who played, what was her name? Mammy?
Yeah, I can't remember. I try to keep this movie from my head completely. She won the Academy Award.
She won the Academy Award. Anyway, so it was hard for me to rate on diversity, because it was like, yes, there was Black actors in the movie, but they were portraying slaves who were happy to be in service.
They were portraying slaves in a real inauthentic manner.
Very inauthentic.
And the thing about this movie is you can appreciate the
production value.
The production value on this is incredible, even to this day. I mean,
it looks crystal clear. We were talking about Moonstruck. Remember, and how shitty it looks?
Yeah.
And like, this is just, it was released in 1939, and it's just as clear as day.
Yeah, and not only that, you've got all these epic shots, and you have to remember, like, before the late 1990s, anytime you had shots with an enormous, group of people, those are actual people that are on screen. They're not, they're not CGI. And even like later, you could do a little bit of like compositing to kind of double up the people that you do. This is, every person that's on screen is a unique individual. So, you just look at that and the epic scale of it. The movie is impeccably put together. The music is good. The direction is good. I think it had like 3 different directors.
Yeah, there was quite a few that were uncredited.
Yeah.
So, confession. I actually got sucked into the love triangle.
Really?
I did. I got sucked into it. It's a 4-hour movie.
Yeah, it's
set some time aside. But I felt very intrigued by what was happening between Scarlett, Ashley, and Rhett.
And Melanie. Okay.
Some things, the characters for 1939, we saw a lot of movies from this decade. And there was, the character development in this movie, it was like one of the first times that we saw people with an in-depth character.
Yeah, and flawed. Not
majorly flawed.
Not just flawed, but they
kind of unlikable in a way.
They don't play the flaws for laughs.
Right. Yes.
Like in a lot of other movies, the characters have flaws, but they're kind of goofy flaws.
Yeah, like,
like in this movie, like, let's just face it, Scarlett's kind of terrible.
She's horrible. She's a horrible person.
She's really terrible.
We'll go into that in a minute.
And then, Rhett is kind of a scoundrel.
But he's kind of great.
And I mean, he's real.
He's very real.
He's real as well.
And he's like, you know what? Look, I'm going to put myself out there. I'm not really for this whole war. I'm not South. I'm not North. I'm in it for me. Like, and he's very clear and very open about it.
Yeah. I mean, he's, you know, George Lucas clearly took inspiration from this character.
He's totally Han Solo.
He's totally Han Solo. I mean, he's literally a blockade runner.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a smuggler, essentially. So.
Yeah. So, I really thought that was interesting. So a little bit about Scarlett for a minute, and I have some questions. First of all, do we think what would happen if Ashley, at that first part where Scarlett confesses her love right before he's getting married to Melanie, and she, what if he said, yes, let's get married, and they got married? How do you think that would have ended up?
I think it probably would have ended up fine for her.
Yeah.
I mean that's really, really what she wanted. I mean,
but do we think that, here's the other question. Did she really love Ashley?
Yeah, I think she did. At the very least, she was strongly attracted to him.
Okay, so
maybe she was in love with the ideal of Ashley.
So here's my thing. Okay. In the beginning of the movie, we see, you know, Scarlett being fawned over, and like all these men are like so attracted to her, and even the women talk about her because she's, you know, demands the attention of these men. She finds out from her dad that Ashley is getting engaged
to his cousin, which is kind of a family tradition.
Yeah, so
kind of gross.
And all of a sudden she's like, but Ashley's supposed to be in love with me. And then all of a sudden, from that spot on, she goes after him, and she's like, "I'm in love with you."
Well, they were already kind of courting. That's the impression that I got.
Oh, I didn't get that.
I got the impression they were courting, but this decision was made because this is what the family does, and that Southern way that they do shit like that.
I thought it seemed to me like he was another one of these men that were fawning over her.
I didn't get that.
And she had like, you know,
I didn't get that. I got that they were at least, you know, flirty and courting in a way that she wasn't with these other guys, and that she was using the other guys to try to make him jealous. Mm-hmm. And then she kind of had to go like the nuclear option and just flat out marry his brother-in-law.
Yeah.
So,
but
which is just weird. But
I think that,
and I think that was because if she marries him, then she remains in his life, right?
Well, yeah, she has easier access
because they're married to siblings, so they're always going to be around each other. So
right.
She has easy access. So I think that was
that is a definite user.
Oh, for sure,
for big time. But along the way,
she does do some fairly heroic things.
She does heroic things against her will.
And the other reason I think that she loves him is because, remember, he asks her to look out for Melanie.
Yeah,
and she does. She does do that.
She does. She becomes very independent.
Yeah.
She's very independent. She cares a great deal about her home, about Tara, and like making sure that she keeps it going for her parents.
Yeah.
Her sisters hate her.
Yeah.
Absolutely hate her. Yeah. Especially the one that she marries her.
Yeah, but
she was engaged to.
But she essentially does that for the family, right?
Right.
She does it in order to save Tara because she knows that she can convince Frank to pay the taxes. And then she uses, you know, his own idea to open up her own lumberyard.
Right, which another form of independence.
Yeah.
She's like owns her own shit. She's not taking shit from anybody.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm forging my own path. I'm taking care of my stuff. Here we go. Now, the dynamic with her and Rhett. Rhett, from start, the first time he lays his eyes on her, he's like, oh, I know what this girl's all about.
Yeah.
Like, he sees right through it. But
that's also what he wants.
And and he's cracking up because he's like, oh my God, this woman. And he really falls for her because of that. And she protests because she's like, yeah, screw you, dude. That, you know, like my whole game. And then they, eventually, I don't know if they fall in love or not. I think so.
Yeah, they do.
I think they're in love with each other, and they
in spite of themselves, I think they fall in love with
in
each
spite
other.
of themselves.
And then I think he becomes pretty disillusioned by the fact that it's like, look, I'm literally exactly what you need, and you're still pining after this guy who is taken. And
what is your deal?
What is your deal? And
she's got 2 homes. He's given her a home in Atlanta. He's totally helped her with Tara.
Yeah.
Right? He's at her beck and call. Anything she wants, he'll give it to her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it.
She's just one of those people that can't be satisfied.
Yeah.
And I think
finally
it goes back to that scene where, she just basically says, we're never going to live without.
Mm-hmm.
And she just kind of has that mindset.
Yeah, and it's sad, but he finally is like, look, I can't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going back to Carolina. You could do what you want to do. I'm out.
Yeah.
And especially let's talk about her relationship with her daughter.
She doesn't really have one.
She doesn't really have one. Every scene that you see is with Rhett and Bonnie Blue.
Yeah, and
Bonnie Blue, Bonnie Bell.
And he doles on her too, and then
Yeah, and then the tragedy happened, which was horrible.
Yeah.
And their lives are full of tragic moments and times. So yeah, I really found myself very invested in the love story, which is why I think that it's so high on the list, because the love story is super interesting.
I have a real hard time overlooking a lot of...
Yeah, that was really, every time they showed, a slave on the screen, it's very cringeworthy.
Mm-hmm.
It's very jarring.
Well, it's not just that. It's like they have all these little, interstitials with text on the screen that just, paints the rosiest picture of the South. Yeah. And you're like...
And you're like, wait, what? And then my thing was, there was actually a comment, I can't remember who said it, but they were talking about the Yankees, and they're like, how uncivilized they are. And I'm like, you are the ones that own slaves.
Right.
How uncivilized is that?
Yeah.
So it was interesting, and they didn't see that their way of life was wrong.
Yeah.
At all. And
the film doesn't even paint a picture where you can make an argument for it. It just completely glosses over it, just like the book does. And I get it.
Just like education does.
And I get it. That's in the text.
Yeah.
But, as a filmmaker and as a screenwriter, you get to interpret that novel in a different way and tell your story. It's a different story. And they didn't bother to do that, which is a shame. And it's one of the reasons I have a huge, huge problem with this movie, despite the fact that it is an absolute astounding achievement in movies. You know what else is? Triumph of the Will. And no one's glorifying that movie either, because it deals with some real shitty subject matter too. So I can appreciate everything that goes into this movie and still absolutely never want to watch it again.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm good. I've seen it twice in my life. I'm good.
I haven't seen this movie in a really, really long time. I didn't like it then. I like it even less as I've grown older and have even less patience for this kind of stuff in the world. If you do watch it, you can watch it with an appreciation for what goes onto the screen, but also understanding that there's a lot of subject matter in this movie that is just plain wrong. There's no other way to put it. It's just wrong.
Yeah, it's really wrong. Just a side note, one of the things that really bothered me too, was the way that Scarlett talked to everyone, and
especially the slaves. Yeah,
it was like, God,
But I mean, that's what you kind of expect. I wouldn't have any problem with that if they painted the fact that the slaves were in a situation beyond their control, and this wasn't the life that they wanted to live.
Right.
And it's like the slaves stayed on after the end of the war. I'm like, really? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
We had I was kind of surprised by your score on this one. I gave it a 46. You gave it a 64, which is pretty generous of you.
And I think the reason why I was generous with it was because I really felt myself invested in the love story.
Okay, fair enough. That means the list score is 55.
Okay.
So I still think it's rather high on the list, even as,
Number
well-crafted
2.
a movie that it is. I think you just simply have to take into account the social aspects of this movie and how it has aged. This list came out in 2002. That is plenty of time to, evaluate this kind of film historically.
And that's what we're doing with our lists, right? We're trying to modernize the list. We're trying to make it, fair and doing a rating of it so that you can appreciate it for what it is, but also recognize that it's not something that should be, looked at through the same lens anymore.
This is a case where, this one wouldn't get weeded out because of the love story or lack thereof. There are some movies on this list that are really, really good movies that have no place on a love story list.
Nope.
This one has a right to be considered because it is a love story, but there are aspects of this that lead me to have serious issues.
Honestly, I think a lot of people have a special place in their heart for this movie. Like they're like
my sister's favorite movie,
and they romanticize. They're like, "Oh, it's so good." So
I can't romanticize.
So right now, I am challenging you, for people who love this movie. I am challenging you to watch it now. Watch it this weekend. Watch it with eyes from this time, not when you were a child, not when you were a teenager. At the age you are now, and tell us what you think.
With an understanding of how the world works, with an understanding of American history, with an understanding of world history. I mean, slavery was not just an American issue. It was an issue, beyond us. You took people from their home and forced them into labor. And I mean, we're still dealing with this stuff. I mean, here in California, they're having votes on potential reparations, from 400 years ago. It's a very, very sticky subject. It's part of the DNA of our country, which frankly we don't address enough. But you can, like I said, I can appreciate the techniques and the filming and the acting and everything that goes into the movie. I have a hard time swallowing the story itself in a lot of fashion. So,
and if you're gonna accept my challenge and watch the movie, I highly recommend watching it on HBO Max if you have it, so you can see that introductory talk they have before the movie.
Yeah, and it's not like one of the ones like on Disney, like in front of Lady and the Tramp, where they kind of try to slide, kind of really smooth over the fact that you've got the Siamese thing and all that kind of stuff. This one just goes dead at it and really talks about the way that this movie was received, beyond
the reality of the movie.
The reality of the movie. And you know what? It was a very popular movie. When adjusted for inflation, this movie is still the highest grossing movie of all time.
Yeah.
More than Star Wars, more than any Marvel movie, more than anything Steven Spielberg has ever done. It goes without saying that, this movie does belong in conversations, but I think it is regarded to a level that it doesn't really deserve upon further review.
All right, so please leave your comments. Tell us what you think about this movie. Let me know if you're going to watch it again, and let me know what you thought after you watched it for this time period, I guess. Anyway, yeah, leave a comment. If you'd like to talk to us directly, please do so at ratingthelist@gmail.com. But that's it for now. I'm Jerry.
I'm Brad.
And we're Rating the List. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.